Hello and welcome to the Pendulum Swings podcast brought to you by the team at Pendulum Growth. On today's episode we'll be discussing the topic of mental health, trying to define what that is, some of the common causes and symptoms, and also some of the best ways to manage your mental health. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the podcast.
I am Mark Parfit, this is Tom Molyneux, and this is
Paul MacDonald.
And today we're going to be talking about mental health. We're going to be talking about its causes, what it means to us, and some ways in which you can support yourself and how we support ourselves and stuff like that. So let's get started. I suppose at the top, where this term mental health has been used a lot in the last 10 years especially, but what does mental health mean? First of all, what is maybe a definition of mental health as scientifically, and then maybe let's drill down to what does mental health mean to us. Lads, who wants to get started? You want to jump in? Paul?
Yeah, don't mind jumping in. I think just from the offset, we're going to talk about the official sort of definitions of it, like what the NHS tells us, because this term, it's an absolute beast. It's grown arms and legs, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Jumping in. So mental health refers to our emotional, psychological and social well-being. We all have mental health. Our mental health affects how we think, feel and act. It also impacts on how we cope, interact and form relationships with others, as well as our daily functioning. So that's like what the NHS tells us. So again, with that there's quite a lot of information in there as well. If we strip that back, so if we dig out the dictionary, a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. So that's like what the official definitions of that word are. I think for me, just to add on to that, like one thing that I found interesting when we were researching this episode is when it comes to mental health, there's up to 35 different mental health conditions which sit under that term. So I think that's something that is worth thinking about when we maybe hear someone struggling with the mental health. It could be one of many things of what it is. Tom, yourself, mate, what's I suppose your definition, or is there anything you want to add to that?
I think with mental health, like you said, it's such a broad topic now, and 35 different conditions was a real shock to me. I would have definitely gone with a lower number from that there. So for mental health, for me, it's a lot to do with a combination of your thoughts, your actions and the words that you speak, and having those aligned with each other, I think is a big part of what good mental health looks like for me. Having a consistency across those three things. I think consistency is the big word, mate. When I think of, if I'm looking at myself, of course, and the people around me, consistency across the type of words that people are speaking and how aligned that is with how I see them behaving and how I'm behaving as well for myself. So consistency was the big word that came out for me when I was looking at what good mental health looks like.
Yeah.
I think you see it when you're speaking with someone on a frequent basis and then you're kind of observing them either like personally or from afar.
Yeah.
If there's a misalignment between what they're saying and what they're doing, for me that can be a big clue sometimes that someone's struggling with the mental health.
Yeah.
Are the words that they're speaking, whether it's plans that they've got, whether it's things they say they're doing or they've been doing, do they really have that belief in those words that they're speaking to then act upon it? So that was the big one that came out for me. I know, looking at myself previously, when I've had poor phases of mental health, what I was saying and talking about and the things that I was doing didn't match up.
Yeah.
That was a big thing now for me, where the things that I'm talking to people about, plans that I'm laying out, things that I'm telling people I'm going to do, delivering on those and actually carrying out the actions that I talk about is a good sign for me that I'm in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the one for me, mate.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I suppose mental health, from what I can understand or extrapolate there, Paul, just in broad terms, mental health is like our physical health. You can be in good health, you can be in poor health, can't you? So obviously we've got the definition there, and it was important for us, I think, to talk about the scientific definition or the NHS or the World Health Organization definitions, because we're not experts, we're going through this ourselves like everyone else. Tom's just sort of talked about what his definition of good mental health is to him. What does yours look like?
I think like the headlines for me come up as like your mindset, thoughts and behaviours at a particular moment in time. And again, with all them things, they can be in a really good place, or they can be in a place which is not so good. And when I think of like my earliest sort of memory of like mental health, it was innately inside knowing here, this feeling is not quite right. I should not be feeling like this every day, or waking up and feeling like this. And I think it, you know, for anybody who is maybe a little bit unsure of what it is, or if they've got a problem or not, I think your gut instincts probably telling you the right thing, that something here is not it is not quite right. And when I think now of like someone with more positive mental health, or, you know, hopefully myself now in a better position, it's my ability, or someone's ability, to manage the ups and downs of everyday life. I think like one thing I want to sort of stress on this episode is that everybody has mental health. Like we just said then, there's tons of different definitions and criteria and conditions which sit underneath it, but every single one of us has mental health. It's something we have to accept, it's something we have to manage every day. There's always chaos around the corner, there's always things around the corner which are going to throw us off track. Again, this might resonate with some people. We sometimes have things that get to us and we reflect on and think, how's that happened? I can usually manage this, take it in my stride. But then on other occasions, it's really threw me off and I've had a bad day. And generally that's it, talks into your resilience and your ability to manage that situation. And again, you know, we'll stress this a lot, we're not perfect. We're probably in a position now when we're better equipped to deal with it. But we're all immune to a bad day here or there, or a bad week.
Yeah.
It happens. But it's the ability to bounce back from that, or to use one of your phrases, mate, bounce forward, how we move forward with it. So yeah, that's probably my own, just from my own experience with it, and also just trying to move forward with it. I knew something innately in me wasn't right, and I've got to try and fix it. And, you know, obviously we'll talk a little bit later on in the podcast how we've been able to manage that, and, you know, improve that. And I think just let's play a little bit of role reversal. We haven't asked yourself, Mark, so in terms of like your definition of mental health, what would you say?
I guess good, like being in good mental health for me often feels like I'm activated. So I feel like I'm you know, able to comfortably take things in my stride. A good measure for me, because I'm a lad with 2 boys, you know, it is my interactions with my sons and stuff like that. The more patient I can be, the less clipped I am with them, the more I can sort of, you know, talk to them on a normal level instead of getting stressed out. That's what I know. And stress, I suppose, is separate to it, but what comes along with good mental health tends to be good habits. I think, to Tom's point as well, I'm sleeping well, I'm exercising, I'm, you know, my diet's okay. All of these kind of things, when I'm lined up, that feels like, right, I'm in a mentally healthy space and I can take the knocks of the day. Yeah. I don't get brain fog from work, or, you know, I can see the wood from the trees, I guess, a little bit. Perspective's really important, I think, for good mental health. Being able to step back a little bit and go, a lot of this doesn't matter, you know, in the real world. Sometimes you can get caught up in things, whether it's work, family, anything. And if you just step back a little bit, you go, actually, you know, this isn't as big a problem as it feels. I think being really mentally healthy means being able to step away a little bit and putting stuff into perspective.
I think that's, for me, again, you're right, mate, but one of the best tips is applying that lens of perspective on things. And one of the things I always find myself when I'm in one of them situations is asking myself questions of, because you probably found yourself here before, what did you do last time? What actually happened last time? Or if it's a new situation, what's the worst thing that could happen here?
Yeah.
And, you know, generally for me, when them things have happened, it's when I've been in a new situation, maybe at work or outside of work, but I'm in that position for a reason. I wanted this 6 months ago, I wanted this new job, or I wanted this new opportunity. I've got it now. I've got to accept that there's going to be bumps along the road where I'm going to have to be like, oh, a little bit out of my comfort zone here, but I need to apply that perspective to it. I think just, you know, on the definitions of mental health, one thing I want to talk about, it's something that we used to reference in the sessions that we were doing is, for anyone who doesn't understand mental health, I think a really good starting point is there's a video online called A Black Dog. It's called I Have a Black Dog and his name's Depression or something like that. I know it's talking specifically there about depression, but that tells the story and the impact that it has on people and things that you might see or behaviours that you might see in the people around you and how debilitating it can be. I feel it's been a really serious podcast so far. So one of the things that in it that I always love is that it says it's an equal opportunity mongrel. And it always brings a bit of a smile to my face, but it's true that everybody has an opportunity in their life where this could happen to them. The severity of it is, is always different. But unfortunately, we're all going to go through tough times from one point to another in our lives, and it doesn't discriminate, this stuff. Everyone's got, it says an equal opportunity for this to happen. So yeah, I said there, if anyone's sort of struggling around like knowing like, or maybe even understanding what it is, if someone says to them, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way, and you don't know how to react, that's probably one of the best videos I'd say to watch. It always gets a good reaction when we host it in sessions. Just another one as well, I want to pick up on a point that you mentioned at the start, which was around the word mental health. It's been used a lot, and it's obviously in there, vocabulary and vernacular now, worldwide. I did a little bit of research before the podcast, and if you use Google Trends, you'll be able to see this. And there's no surprises with this, right? Year on year for the last 10 years, the popularity, and what we mean by that, the term mental health has been used more year on year, consistently spiking during COVID in 2021 at its absolute peak, and it's sort of plateaued from, I think it was early 2021 to where we are now in 23. So the word is being used a lot more, so people are searching for it more. What I found interesting is the word's tagged alongside it.
Alright, okay.
So anxiety, depression, were up there. Lockdown was up there as well, because I think again that was something for a lot of people. Isolation, loneliness. Yeah. So they were the sort of keywords that were tagged alongside it as well. So it's not just us saying it or us feeling that, it's more out there. Like the data, at least online, suggests that it is. So yeah, I think that was something for me that I found quite interesting with the trends that we've got there.
I think one of the key takeaways there, lads, from what you both said, and I think for myself this is the case as well, that we feel that mental health is something that we are responsible for as individuals. Yeah. I think that's something I take there, and I think from ourselves first hand and the vast majority, I would say, of the people that we've supported in the community, that will be the case. So that there may be people listening, or maybe people out there who have been through some particular trauma or in a position where maybe their mental health is very much dependent on another person or somebody else in their life. But for the vast majority of us, with actions and with different types of thinking, we can take control of our mental health, or at least mitigate the negative side of it really well.
So that leads us neatly on, I suppose, to the next question, which is what causes poor mental health? And to add to that, let's talk about obviously some of the wider sort of causes, and then maybe drill down on some stuff that we've maybe dealt with in it as well, just to sort of bring it to life a little bit. So what impacts your mental health overall?
I think change, big change, wherever that falls within your life, whether it's a structural change in your family, maybe you've had a career effort that you've gone on to try and achieve something, and maybe it's not happened for you. Relationship changes, breakdowns in relationships, changes financially. I think big change is often what causes, if you're going to look at it in kind of a broad sense, big life changes. Big negative life changes, yeah? Yeah, or at least perceived at the time. As negative, to be negative life changes, yeah, that's probably something we'll come on to at a later time, but a big change that you perceive in that moment to be negative is what I see the most common things to cause mental health problems, and for myself personally as well in the past. I think we've seen that sometimes in the community work that we've done, that someone has struggled to deal with, really struggled to climb over something like the passing of a loved one, or
being injured in some way that doesn't allow them to contribute in their home life. So whether it's working or, being in the military or anything like that. So yeah, I can see that completely, Paul.
Yeah, I think with this one, it's interesting. And again, like, if I think about myself and think about people that I've supported, it's generally a complex combination of multiple factors. And the ones that you mentioned there are the top ones. And I think what we've got to, sort of appreciate as human beings we are resilient by nature. We can go through a lot. So generally, if maybe one or two of these things happen, we can handle it. We've all heard of that saying, haven't we, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
And I think we all do have, a tipping point, a breaking point. And sometimes it will be when you first speak to someone or when you first open up, it'll be like, you'll tell the most recent thing that's happened. But actually, it's probably been a build-up over a long period of time. Especially as you say, there's maybe been a passing or trauma in the past. That can be the starting point. We've all heard that thing, tell us about your childhood, tell us about this. But actually the reason why is because we want to try and go back as far, therapists want to go back as far as they can to understand maybe the root cause of certain things. But generally it's a complex combination, so I wouldn't want people to think it's the causes of mental health are really simple. It can be quite complex.
Yeah.
I know myself, again, working through when I had support in the past, there was multiple layers that needed to be broken down in order to be in the position where you can manage it effectively and healthfully. So I think it's what we don't want to, we don't want to sort of like batten it down in terms of like play it off like, oh, it's dead easy to fix this. Sometimes it isn't. There's a lot of different things that can cause it. So that and I think that's why when you are suffering, it can sometimes feel like, where do I start?
Yeah.
There's a million and one things here which that I suffer with, or that really get to me, that cause me to have poor mental health. But generally what can happen is so if you look at someone who's maybe had trauma, lost the job, lost the relationship, generally there'll be some common themes that come out of them. So one of them things might be loneliness. You're by yourself. The bereavement as well you've suffered has caused you to be lonely. As I mentioned there, you're out of a relationship, you're out of a job, you don't have any social interactions anymore. So that could be one of like the strong contributing factors. So I think generally within that complex combination, there will be consistent things that you can draw out. So sometimes it could be loneliness, it could be lack of a connection, lack of purpose, lack of meaning. Again, something that we talk about a lot of the support we do is that we found there's a lot of people out there without purpose, without direction, without meaning.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that you pull out of, like, some of them symptoms some of them causes that we find is that there's a lack of real purpose and direction in this person.
So I think, and I suppose it's probably really important to create clear delineation, I guess. So the first
it's a nice
thing,
word, mate.
thanks.
Delineation.
Cheers. Probably not using it correctly, but so there's one circle. I think it's really important to understand that there is a physiological, isn't it? There's a stuff that is inherent. So with depression and stuff like that, it can be chemical, mentally. It could be stuff that you really do need to see a doctor. It might be that you need to be treated with antidepressants or things like that. So that it's important to understand that there's those factors, isn't it? And then sort of some of the stuff that we're talking about is the external impacts to it. So I think just mine, I went on mind.org, I've got a few here, a lot of them you've called out already. So like loneliness, one of the things we haven't really said there is childhood abuse, trauma or neglect. So really not having that support network when you're younger, or being mistreated in some way. Discrimination, so again that is loneliness, but or separation in another sense, isn't it? Social disadvantage, poverty, debt, are other things that come out. Homelessness are other bits. Drug and alcohol misuse, which sort of, I think drug and alcohol misuse almost, it comes from some of those other things. It's like almost a symptom of some of those other areas and stuff, or it seems like that to me. And then you've got things like domestic violence, bullying, and then physical causes, like I was just saying, then neurological, so head injuries, like a chemical, poor mental imbalance and stuff like that. So I suppose there's loads of causes, isn't there? And I guess when we're talking about stuff, there's certain stuff where we say, and we'll always say, the first thing is go and seek medical help, seek medical advice.
Speak to an expert on it, and I'd say as well, like do your research as well. Like I know, just for like full disclosure, my own struggles with mental health. I knew that the problems, the thoughts, the patterns, the behaviours that I was displaying, I didn't believe taking a tablet was going to change that.
Yeah.
Them thoughts, behaviours and patterns were going to remain, but the tablet might help diffuse the situation or sort of make me
take this anxiety out of it.
Take that feeling away. And I didn't want that. Some people want that, and that's perfectly fine. And I'd always stress to people, you know, this is a very common phrase, everyone says do your research, but really have a think about what you're going to do. And also realise, you know, that there's a ton of different ways to attack it. And that's the thing, we have our favourite ways of looking at things that might not work for everybody, but you know it to yourself when it comes to this, it's important to try things and give it a little bit of time.
Yeah.
There's, you know, I'll get onto this in a little while, but there's no silver bullet, there's no magic pill to take which will solve it straight away, but you know it to yourself to try different things and try new things.
Yeah.
And again, you know, you'll be surprised the amount of people out there who are doing positive things for their mental health and maybe don't sometimes realise it, or actually there's plenty of people out there who'll share with you, here's what I do, maybe try it and see what happens. But no, you're right to call that out, mate. I think we spoke about some of the common ones there, but there is things, unfortunately, that people can't help, you know, physiological conditions off the back of injuries, and you know, we've seen it through the work we've done in the community. There'll be people who've maybe just hit hard times and, like I say, they've lost their job, lost their partner, lost their family member, or there's poor people out there who've been involved in industrial accidents, and yeah, where'd you start with that? You know what I mean? It's a real big challenge. And the thing for me that I want us to pick up on this, generally what happens is, I'm a big wrestling fan, so I like this one, rock bottom. You hit rock bottom, don't you?
Yeah.
And sometimes from my own experience, it wasn't until I hit rock bottom or something really bad happened that it forced me to change. There's always warning signs, but I'll get over that in a couple of weeks. But when something like really bad happened, it was like a reset of, okay, you can't get any worse than this. You're gonna have to do something now. You're gonna have to speak to a doctor. You're gonna have to, you know, speak to your boss at work or look for support. And I'm not encouraging people by any way to hit rock bottom. Yeah. But unfortunately, from my own experience and from speaking to others, it wasn't until they've hit rock bottom that they've actually gone and got help. Because you think you can get away with it, or it'll go with this.
Tom's talked about this before, and I think it's an important thing to sometimes situations are just comfortable enough, even if they're uncomfortable, but they're comfortable enough that it doesn't galvanise change. And it's not until it gets like untenable that you sometimes have to move to action. So sometimes it might even be better. The situations are more challenging for you because it galvanises action or change for the better sometimes.
Yeah, it's a concept that I've become aware of in probably the last 12 months. It's called the region beta paradox. And you can look at this, I suppose relationships is a good one to look at, where you'll know someone who's been in a relationship for 5 years, and it's only because they've been in that relationship for 5 years that they don't go out of it. But, you know, they're sharing the rent, it's quite civil, there's no abuse involved, so yeah, it's okay, we'll carry on. There's loads of, I mean, jobs are definitely one as well for people, but yeah, sometimes a situation needs to become severely uncomfortable before you even think about making a change. I think mental health is definitely one of them. If you hit that rock bottom, as we see unfortunately more and more often now, that there's kind of a split in the road at that point. And for some, that split in the road leads to obviously suicide and you know, really serious consequences, but for others the other split in the road leads to like this bounce back. We almost look at depression sometimes as a very negative, black and white, it's a negative thing, but I think for anyone who's been through depression or severe anxiety or any of these other mental health conditions and have come out the other side, it's often the best thing that ever happened to them, almost. And I think for anyone who is listening who's been through some form of mental health challenges or difficulties or has been at that bottom point and that rock bottom, as Paul said, take a lot of confidence that you've been through that and come out the other side and actually look to use that now. If you can overcome that, the confidence that should then give you and the ambition to go, okay, well, I've dealt with that now, I must have something inside me to be able to go on and take on some other bigger things. So for those who come out the other side, and we don't want to encourage people to become depressed or hit rock bottom, but if you've been through that already and come out the other side, it's as good a kind of qualification for life as you can obtain, isn't it? So there is, for some people who've been through it already, there is positives to take from it as well.
One thing I just want to add on that, I think you made a brilliant point there around depression. I remember when I was younger, when you heard about people having depression, it was like a death sentence for that person, and I was a little bit like, oh, stay away from them, they're depressed. Like, it had that sort of, like, it was like a trigger word. Like, you know, sometimes there's certain words we hear and just there's that guttural instinct, oh, cancer's one, isn't like, every single depression, from what I remember being younger, was like that. Such and such is depressed, they've gone mental, or, you know, you know, and it was like a real extreme thing out there, and like, as a kid you thought, bloody hell, they'll be in the loony bin, like these sorts of the terminology, or they're gonna go mad or do something stupid,
inherent of a weakness of mind or something like that.
And it was like something to be shameful about or ashamed about. And it for me, like to Tom's point there, now that a lot of like successful people will tell you that was the making of them. It was the greatest learning opportunity that they ever had. The greatest reflective practice they've ever done was off the back of that. So I think that's like one thing, of anyone who's struggling right now or going through it or getting through the other side of it, well then. Swore, that's the first swear word, isn't it? Pendulum swing. Sorry lads, might be a fine then. We'll be able to monetize this one. But no, it's something to be very proud of. And again, you know, for me, if we look at the definition of what depression is, I believe it's like a sustained period of low or sadness, or, you know, basically being in a poor state, a poor feeling. And I think, again, for anything over 2 weeks,
it's a very,
you know, we might have to fact check that one. But I'll pose to you that anyone who's gone through a close bereavement will feel like that. It's a very close bereavement or a real sudden change in circumstance. So we've all got a very high percentage of going through depression. So it's not that thing to be shameful about or feel like, you know, disassociated with society. It's something that we've all got a real chance of suffering from. I think that leads us on to, as we said, we're going to talk a little bit about symptoms, didn't we? So lads, either one of you, what sort of symptoms do you see, had yourself, or can sort of spot a mile off?
I think on the complete different ends of your kind of socialising spectrum. I know for me, during a period of where I would say most difficult, there was like a 3 or 4 month window of complete withdrawal, followed by a 3-month window of just over socialising, hanging around the wrong people, doing the wrong things. And I think either end of that spectrum is definitely a symptom of poor mental health. You know, completely withdrawing from any social occasions, doing things that you could do with some other people, but doing it on your own instead. And then there's the just out Friday to Sunday, even you know, just completely having to be over social and spending more and more time with different people, and probably under the influence of alcohol, trying to be something that you're not, and over socialising. It's almost like trying to change other people's perception of you, in the hope that your own perception of yourself will change in a positive way as well. So they're the big ones for me. If I have a friend who's suddenly going out all the time and they're hanging around with different people, I'd be like, is everything okay there? What are you looking to gain from this kind of activity? So they'd be two really obvious ones for me that I've experienced firsthand and then seen from other people as well.
I think for me, listlessness, not wanting to contribute or be part of stuff, not really being able to foresee. A really big thing for me is potential. I love the potential of being excited for, you know, like Christmas or a holiday and all that kind of stuff.
Just not leaving Santa, mate.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Getting them on the podcast,
yeah, of course.
exclusive.
And I think not being able to generate that excitement for things that are coming up in the future is always a warning sign for me. Or, you know, a thought process for me. And if other people are just sort of like always like put off by whatever usually excites them, then I think, oh, there's something else going on there. And I think back to a time for me, a big period of unrest when I joined a new job, and I'd moved from a job that I was really doing well at, and I'd moved really for family, for work-life balance and all this kind of stuff. When I started that job, it wasn't, it didn't go well at first, and I started displaying behaviours that in work that I normally wouldn't display. And then outside the work, I started displaying, I became quite angry and upset, and I'd tell anyone who'd listen, and I became a bit of a bore as well at it, you know what I mean, saying that kind of stuff. I realise now, I look back at a time when I was really struggling, I think, to deal with and cope with a lot of change. I felt overwhelmed a lot. And as soon as I was able to sort of take a step back from that and promote a little bit of positivity, of change within that, it sort of fed into different things, which was interesting to me, because I never was a person who thought that work ended up being playing a part in my private life. I thought I could always leave one side and the other, but that was probably because I was quite lucky in situations where my work wasn't overly stressful and wasn't spilling out. So that's always that was a sign for me, but, you know. But what I've seen in friends and stuff like that as well is just a sort of you know, if I suppose if people stop looking after themselves in one way or another, whether it's physically, you know, or they don't bother cleaning their clothes too much, or you know, they don't look after themselves, like you know, just like combing the hair or anything like that. Not always a sign that, you know, people are rushed. I'm a parent of 2 boys, and sometimes I run out the house with, you know, my hair off. But in general, if you start to see that repetitive nature of that sort of stuff happening, people not coming out at all and withdrawing, those are the kinds of things that I've seen.
I think that's the one that I was going to say about when you say like repetitiveness. So the analogy that I always used, I felt I was on a Ferris wheel consistently, ups and downs, feeling like you're getting better and then not getting better, making the same mistakes again and again, feeling the same again and again. And I think one of the points that you made there as well that resonates with me, I spot this a mile off. Again, done people management for years, but you've got people who will tell anybody who will listen, here's what the problems are. And don't get me wrong, we're not saying that, you know, people do need to talk about the problems, but not as an outlet just to pass it on to them and maybe spread negativity, or to, you know, how bad is it for me and all, you know. Generally, unfortunately, it can be a little bit of a victim mentality of, look how bad I've got it right now, instead of maybe reflecting on it and seeing what you could do differently when you're making the same mistakes again and again and again. But yeah, that nature of just feeling like you're on a Ferris wheel, you know, you get better, you eventually just end up getting worse again. Why is that? There will be something that happens every single time, but you could never quite put the pieces together and understand what's causing this. So that's the one that I felt, but I also feel from sometimes, you know, just observing people I have in my life, they'll have good times and bad times, you know, that maybe that's just a constant wheel that they're going to be on. I think life can feel slow. Like, you know, your day, you're just watching the clock all day and life feels really slow. Activities that you can just do without thinking take an enormous amount of energy to do just to get through the day. And that was something for me that I felt, and probably one of them things again, you know, we're not fully cured here, nobody is, no one's perfect, but there's some of the signs and symptoms that I look out for in myself that I feel tired, more tired than usual. There we go, I've got the first guest on, Pendulum Swings here. And that thing of like reduced memory, reduced focus, again with things that you really love and enjoy, and that fog, as you say, of, you know, what am I doing? Where am I? You know, sort of thing. You know, I've not got dementia or nothing, like, you know what I mean? But it's more like the thought of my focus, my attention is well off. I could be on a call at work, someone asks me a question, I'm like, I've been zoned out there for the last 10 to 20 minutes.
Okay, so we talked about, I guess, what good mental health looks like, or to us, what it looks like. We've also talked about some, not all of the outputs of, you know, poor mental health. So, you know, we've talked about some of the symptoms you might see. There's loads more, and obviously we'd always recommend you, as you, Paul, that might be one of our first catchphrases, don't just listen to us, do the research a little bit. Okay, moving on then to, I guess, opportunities then. So we've even talked about, having anything from head trauma to, the black dog of depression that you talked about, to things like anxiety, and all of these other sorts of mental health conditions. What things can we put in place? What positive steps can we do to improve our mental health then? I'm looking for, I suppose, a little bit of a top-down stuff, and how it works for you as well. So I'm going to fire first of all at Tom this time around. Well, what do you do to sort of keep your mental health well or in check?
Yeah, I think just one thing on that, and I think this is something we've discussed before, and it's really important not to start doing things just for your mental health. Not going into something going, right, I'm going to go for a run because my mental health will be better afterwards. I think when we start to look at our mental health and start to address any issues that we're facing, it can be quite easy to fall into that trap of just going, right, I'm going to do this, this and this, and it's going to improve my mental health. One, it's not sustainable to continue to do that, especially if these are things that you don't maybe enjoy and don't really take any other kind of satisfaction or fulfillment from them. And two, it can lead to massive disappointment as well, where you may actually do something where a byproduct is good for your mental health, but if you don't see immediate results, you go, I'm not doing that anymore. You know, I've tried going to the gym this week, I don't really feel better, so I'm not going to exercise anymore, or I've started going to some form of therapy for the last 2 weeks, no real impact, therapy's no good. So yeah, I do loads for my mental health, but I think over time I've learned not to do it specifically for the outcome of better mental health. Okay. So that's just something that I think we've learned over time to try and avoid. It's something Paul introduced to me from someone Paul speaks to, and I find that really, really helpful. In terms of what I would say I do then that does impact my mental health in a positive way, I think routine, definitely. I think getting up at a similar time each morning, even carrying that over into the weekend or my days off as well. I think there's loads of studies proving that if you go to bed at a similar time and wake up at a similar time each day, that can drastically reduce anxiety and improve your mental health. Routine in general, doing similar things, eating similar things, spending time again with a consistent group of people helps massively for me with my mental health and just how I feel in general. I think that lack of surprise and lack of having to make too many decisions as well. If I get up in the morning, I'll go in kitchen, have something to drink, maybe a little bit of food, do my hygiene stuff, whatever that is in the morning, and then go and train or do something that's active. That for me is definitely a pillar of what keeps things together for me.
Paul, same question?
Yeah. So I think I just want to sort of like go back to our point obviously at the start. I think that the thing to be mindful of it with managing your mental health is that there's no silver bullet, there's no magic pill which is just going to make it go away. I think the word acceptance is used a lot in therapies and the clinical side of things, that we've got to address and accept the things that have happened before. So I think that's something for me. Before we start digging into doing X, Y and Z, there's got to be some work done up here to accept what's gone on.
Are we talking like reflective practice?
Taken to my next point, I mean, some of the stuff that we deliver in our sessions, I think is really important. So things like reflecting on the past, learning from it. When you're choosing to manage your mental health, it's probably one of the greatest learning journeys that you're going to do. Learning about yourself, learning about the things that make this happen. That thing I mentioned before, being on a Ferris wheel, what caused me to keep making the same mistakes? What do I need to stop doing, or what activities do I need to remove myself from? What behaviours do I need to stop not displaying to get to that point? So I think, some of that reflective practice. I think one thing for me, which always used to help, but there probably was something inside me which was, don't give up on yourself. Where you are now and how you are feeling right now is not going to be the way you feel for the rest of your life. And that's what I'd love to say to people out there who are struggling. No matter how tough it feels right now, it's not going to be like this forever. If you start taking action and try and do some of the things, not that just we're talking about, that maybe your doctor's trying, or your friends, or your family, your support network around you, there is a way out of this. There's not one route for everybody, but there is a way out of this. Don't give up on yourself. And then I think like one thing to talk about, which we're passionate about, is that talking is important. If you are just holding on to this yourself and battling alone, it's a tough and it's a very lonely place. So we are key advocates on people opening up and talking. But it comes with a caveat, like all things do, right? If I was to open up to you guys today and tell you that I'm struggling with depression, that's a really good start. And next week, we're probably going to talk about it again and how things, how are you feeling? But if we're to fast forward 6 months and I'm still saying the same things, that's not progress, that's not right. I'm still in the same position as I am right now, if all I am doing is just talking about it. So it is a key, for me, one of the prerequisite things that you must do is talk and open up and share with people. But once that's done, and once you've accepted it and you've reflected on it, I believe then you're in a position to start taking some action.
Move to action.
To start implementing some of these tools and techniques that Tom's mentioned there. So that for me, I think you can't just say, I've got a problem with depression, I'm just going to go and exercise, I'm just going to go and do some yoga or meditation. I think you've got to sort of have sounds weird to speak to yourself, but have conversations internally, or with a therapist, or with someone who does counselling, or could be a loved one, family member, or whatever. There's got to be some acceptance and conversation internally with the things that are getting you there. And now let's try and maybe take some action to help that. Because again, to my point before around what I was talking about medication, if I've got certain thoughts, behaviours, feelings, actions that I'm doing, exercise isn't going to change that. I will feel good after I've exercised, but my thoughts might still be the same, my behaviours might still be the same. I've got to work that out first. And alongside that, to supplement it, is do exercise, have a healthier diet. That's to me how I best managed it, and I want to stress that that's what I done. It might not be the same for everyone, but one thing for me which did really help was opening up to people closest to me, and I was surprised at what the reaction was. It was actually really positive, and it was warm in terms of, right, I'm glad that you told me, I wish you'd told me sooner, but I'm here to help. I'm here to support you along this journey as well. And it's something big that's always resonated with me, it's something that Tom is really good at, is when he's got goals or actions, he shares them with people.
Yeah.
And I know, he does that because he's a nice guy, but also he's doing it because he knows it's going to keep him accountable.
Yeah. He
doesn't want to, next time he meets up with me and you, to say, oh, he's jacked it now, 100-mile race that he's doing, or I've not done any training.
Yeah.
He wants to give you a positive update of, yeah, here's what I'm doing. So it affirms to himself that, yeah, I'm on the right track here, but also shows to the people around him that he's accountable and he's working towards his goals. And again, when you're suffering with mental health, your goals are not going to be doing a 100-mile race. It might be just to get out the house, or to reach out and get the support, or go and speak to your doctor, or go and speak to your boss at work if it's work. So I think speaking to people and having that accountability is good, but action has got to follow. Has got to follow that.
Yeah.
Just going to pause for a breath there. You've said quite a bit, mate. What about yourself?
No, I'm interested. I was
Anything else
fascinated taking it all in, really, and trying to sum up, I guess. The bedrock of the foundation seems to be self-awareness, self-exploration, you know, understanding where you're at as your starting point, and then I suppose one thing that we work on in our sessions, in particular, and have done with the community, is we look at visualising for the future. So I think, and I know it can be really hard, but just trying to even, and I think a lot of journaling works for me, where you write stuff down, because when you write stuff down, you have to force like a shape around your thoughts a little bit. I know it sounds a little bit conceptual, but you have to actually put it into words, which means it makes it more real, I think. So when you write stuff down, and I've used this technique in the past, and I use it often in my daily, where I write down what I want to achieve for the day, or you know, or whatever. If you could write down 3 things that you wanted for yourself to make whatever it is, the future better, and make them realistic. They could be short-term, medium-term, or long-term goals, but something for you to get your teeth into, I think really helps understand then, right, okay, I know where the target is, and I know, because now I've done the self-awareness work, I know where I am now, so now I need this, I've got this bridge, and it could be incremental steps. It might just be, like you saying, you're struggling with depression, you can't get outside, sometimes you can't get out of bed, or you know, you're anxious and all that kind of stuff. Baby steps, you know, just, you know, if you can just be in a green space, you don't have to be around a lot of people, but even if you go into the garden or whatever, and then you start grounding yourself and things like that, those little incremental steps day by day. I think you've both used this term before now, it's something to do with paint layers of paint. Yeah, slowly but surely you're building to, you know, evidence of, you know, success for yourself. And when I say success, I'm not talking about cars or money or anything like that. I'm just talking about success as in your own personal goals, because it's only you versus you. So I think for me, building that bridge, writing some stuff down, try and make it a bit more clear. And one thing that's really does help me in difficult times, is having a purpose to this, what we're doing. I think purpose really helps, and it's something to hold on to. And it, you know, whether it's helping your family, whether it's helping your community, whether it's having other sorts of goals, it's something you want to grip onto, so that when you have tough days, when it doesn't go the way you want, when everything, at the end of the day, you can say, oh, well, I've moved this on a little bit, I've gone a little bit further. Those are a couple of things that have helped me, and I think would help others.
One thing I just wanted to track back on again, guys, is that when we spoke in the first couple of sections, you mentioned change as something which can sometimes trigger poor mental health, or can cause people to I suppose, fall off. Let's look at this from like how to manage it then. So what sort of tips would you give for people managing change?
Again, I'm sorry to jump in first there, Tom. For me, it's a mindset stuff. So if you can reflect, I think Tom used this before, if you reflect on when you've been through a situation before, similar to it, and you've got through the other side, it puts context and perspective to the change. And we've used before a thing called Hero's Journey. Yeah. I'm at a loss to who. Joseph Campbell, that's a spot on, thanks Paul. Hero's Journey is a really good one, and if anyone hasn't ever used it or looked at it, I encourage you to go and have a look. And it's basically an understanding of the different sections of change. So the fact that you start off in a place where you're safe, you go on a journey, you then have things that will sort of alter your state in one way, shape or form. It's the hero's journey, so you might be slaying monsters, or you might be attacked, or you might be in peril, but in reality what we're talking there is there might be a bereavement, you might lose your job, your partner might leave you, or you might just get really bad critical feedback that rocks you to your core or whatever, and you go on this journey of learning about yourself and crawling out the other side, and actually you then return with what they call like a gift.
Yeah.
And actually when you return to the normality, you're changed. You're the hero, but you're the hero plus this gift, and this gift is often a self-awareness, a level up or a difference and stuff like that. So that really helps me. It really helps me knowing that I've gone through quite a period of change recently and stuff like that. The lads know, and I don't mind sharing with whoever listens, that, you know, my mum is really quite sick at the moment and she has stage 4 cancer, and the work I had to do on myself and think about and still do work on myself about my mum is that she's still here. Yeah. She's still, you know, fighting at the moment. She's still able to participate. So I've got to look at making the most of now.
Yeah.
And that's hard because you're having to separate your feelings of like, oh, it's your mum, and you know, obviously I'm really close to my mum and stuff like that. And go, well, she's still here. I've got to make the best of the situation she's got. I want to make her to have the best, you know, possible life from now to as long as it lasts. But I've also got to make the most of the time with her. And if you can almost program that as like, it's a blessing. I've been told now, you've got so much time left with your mum, make the most of it. I've done more with my mum now than I probably did a year previous, you know, and again, that means that that mindset shift, or it means that I'm processing change in a different way, and maybe making the most of that situation, which makes me feel like at least I'm doing that, at least I'm succeeding in making the most of that time. Sorry, I went on a little bit, Tom. Over to you, so I can follow that.
I think purpose, mate, what you mentioned just earlier is massive. And I think we've spoken about purpose being given to us maybe in past times where religion was more prominent. Maybe you were part of a family that owned a family business and you would step into the family business, and I feel historically purpose was kind of handed on a plate to people a little bit more for them to then grasp. I think nowadays you've got to create your own purpose, haven't you? And maybe, I think, cultivate your purpose.
Ooh, that's a good little phrase, isn't it? Cultivate your purpose.
Yeah, it is, mate. Bit of Clarkson's farm.
Yeah.
Cultivating. And then from there, we're all going to suffer. You know, the suffering for yourself at the moment, mate, like you've just discussed there, I can't imagine it. But the purpose that it's given you in being there, to be that supportive son, to be the kind of strong one for your kids and your family members as well, it is no doubt meaning that you're handling that pain and suffering. And you can only talk about what you've done, mate, and the changes you've made in the last 6 months. Without that purpose and being there, could you withstand that, the pain and suffering? And it's just being there and being the man in the family. And we don't talk about masculinity too much on this podcast, but I'm sure we will at a later date. But it's giving you that kind of probably masculine role within the family to stand and be the one with the shoulders. And you're doing all the other stuff, mate, and the compassionate side and talking to people, but still there with that purpose to be the one who supports your mum and the family at this time as well. So purpose is huge, and I think it allows us to accept our suffering more when we have a purpose as well.
One thing I want to add, and this term's used in different contexts, generally not with your mental health, but lifestyle change. When people talk about, you know, generally like diet or getting into exercise, for example, it's got to be a lifestyle change. In my opinion, if you're going to adopt a healthier mindset or attack your mental health and being able to manage it more effectively, a lifestyle change is needed. So by that, what I mean is it's something that you've got to constantly affirm to yourself every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's where purpose fits in. Because your purpose, your why, whatever you want to call it, if it's strong enough, it's there every day. Get you out of bed. Get you through them tough days at work. It helps you do them long hours or do the things that you don't want to do. Because during that suffering, it's like, I know there's a reason for this. There's something better waiting for me. That sounds a bit religious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But there's something better. There's a goal here. There's something that we're working towards here. So I do believe, you know, this is the thing that I've found from supporting people when it has worked and when it hasn't. It's had to be a lifestyle change. It's had to be, I need to look at what I'm doing and I might have to make some big changes here.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a case of, instead of beating myself up all day and having real negative thoughts about myself, is, okay, I probably need to journal that. pick the bones out of it, in order to be able to reflect on it and move away from it. So I do think it's got to be a lifestyle change. It's got to be something that is, again, I've said it a few times today, it's something we're going to have to live with and accept. And in order to do that, it's something we're going to have to think about most days. And purpose helps with that, helps carry us away from that. I think just one thing I want to call out and talk about, we're big protagonists of exercise being really effective for supporting your mental health. And there's lots of study, lots of data out there and research around how effective exercise is. The one for me that really stands out, and it's out of Harvard University, is it's as effective as antidepressants for specifically depression and dealing with it. And what we're going to do is probably different to what most podcasters give you the caveat alongside that. When you look at the study, what it states quite specifically is exercise alone will not take you out of depression. It will help a lot, but it needs to be supplemented by other things as well. So it probably needs to be supplemented by what Tom said, a good routine. So ensuring that you've had, good sleep, and generally that's, depending on who you speak to, maybe 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. Having that routine of, having a healthy diet, so having a healthy breakfast in the morning, or having breakfast in the morning. I know for some people that don't eat in the morning. I know fasting's a whole another thing, but ensuring that you've got a good diet ultimately, drinking plenty of water. For me, a big one is walking the walk. So them things that we're talking about there is actually implementing them. Don't just talk about them, go and do them. Being accountable. Them things that you don't like doing, make sure that you do them. And if you can do something quite difficult early on in the day, so either going in and doing a gym workout or going taking the dog for a walk, so you don't have to do it when you get home after work, is doing something difficult. That's probably another podcast, isn't it? Reimagining what hard is and what difficult is, but doing something that is tough or difficult that we'd usually put off, try and do it early in the day. Again, generally the studies suggest to us that your willpower is at a greater point earlier in the day than it is when you've took all the hits and you try and do something later in the day.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Less mental energy, less resilience as the day goes on. So if you can load your day towards your energy, that makes sense.
And one thing for me that I know I rely on is I feel like I have a support network. And that isn't generally my mum, my dad, my family. I think that's another one that people find it can be difficult at times to talk to your family about it. My own journey is I spoke to my boss at work, who probably has become more like a friend now. But I spoke to my boss at work because she spotted it a mile off. People can spot it a mile off, even though you try and hide it. And that question of, how are you doing? You say, I'm okay, or whatever. People who probably suffer themselves can spot it a mile off, or have ever been in a position where they're responsible for people. To Tom's point, they'll notice things like they're not doing what they usually do. They're probably not sitting with the team, or they're not going for a coffee break with everyone else. They're just sitting and being, by themselves. The point is having this support network, and I know for me it's made up of, there is some family in there, but it's generally friends and people that I've worked with who at a moment's notice can speak to things about. And speak about things before they become a problem. If something's happened, I know I'll have an opportunity to speak to someone about it. And it's not what I would have done in the past where I just hold on to it and just think, I'll just try and deal with this by myself. Having that support network is really important. A phrase that I always use in our sessions is the 3 a.m. club. And the idea behind that is at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you had a problem or something went wrong, who would you call? Who would you speak to? And generally you don't want 20, 30 people in that club. You probably want a handful of people, of maybe 4 or 5 people.
Probably realistically only have maybe 1 or 2 people that you call at 3 o'clock in the morning, really.
Because you don't want to be upsetting too many people getting out of bed, do you? But it's that close, then people who are really close who you could speak to about anything. And on the other side, what I'd say with that is, when we talk about feedback and criticism, when people who are in that club give it to you, probably hurts because it's true. It's hit a nerve, and these are the people who know you most and probably love you as well. So they're saying it from a position of, I want you to grow, I want you to know this. So I'd say for me that's another one, and I know not everyone's fortunate to have this community or this support network. Admit I didn't when I first started, but through opening up and speaking to people, I suppose being a phrase that I like is emotionally genuine, it has helped. People have opened up to me about their mental health struggles because I have opened up. It's not something that you just offer people, is it, genuinely, because it's probably a bit too much that. But if someone said to you that they struggle with their mental health and you have experience with it, generally our human nature is we want to help, we want to support people, we want to share. Well, I've got this, and that's how that's happened. And generally the people who are in my 3am club have got mental health problems as well, or have had mental health problems in the past. So it's, that support network for me is really important. And that phrase, I mean emotionally genuine, what I mean by that is when people ask you the question, how are you doing? Be honest. And if you're having a rubbish day, I'm having a rubbish day.
Yeah.
Don't just say you're okay. Because people will see through it. And that's the thing is that we're taught to do. Ask the question again.
Yeah.
And if you are that person on the other side, know how are you really doing? Tell me, I can tell that answer wasn't how you're feeling, you're wearing it. Tell us how you're really feeling. And being really emotionally genuine to that and tell people. And even if you can't, that's what I thought was difficult at times when people ask you that. It's difficult to articulate when you are in the middle of suffering. What is it? Especially when you don't maybe know too much about mental health or the conditions. How do you articulate what it is? And sometimes there's the shame of, I'm going to say something here, but that person probably doesn't think it's that bad. And it's going to make me look stupid or blah, 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 blah. And again, generally, if you're speaking to people who care about you, that won't enter their mind. They're that worried or concerned about you that they just want to help.
Yeah.
So I think support network's an important one. Any other ones, lads? I suppose before we start maybe wrapping this up, any other ones that you can think of that you'd like to mention?
No, I think we talked quite a lot, and it's not exhaustive. We're just talking about the things that work for us and things that we've spotted along the way. A lot of that stuff is proactive. So going to the gym, working on your mental, your mental health in terms of self-awareness, all that kind of stuff. Proactive steps. One thing I'd probably like to leave on is just maybe some reactive steps. So see, that's your plan A, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Your plan B. What do you, if you do end up, it really does, you start shutting down, you really are struggling. What's your plan B? If you had to put like maybe 2 or 3 things in your plan B, because I think it's important to keep it clean, simple and straightforward. What are the 3 things you'd say?
I think for me, it's kind of the opposite of what we've just been saying about actually doing things, but for me it's actually doing nothing at times. Is it taking some rest, going and being outdoors and relaxing and just ensuring that you put yourself in a calm position where you can start to accept things, start to process things. And usually rest. I think for a lot of people now, when we talk about stress, but burnout is a big phrase that is thrown around a lot now. A lot of us are working more because of the way the financial climate is in the economy at the moment. We're all trying to work. If there's overtime available, we jump on it. We might be doing a second job, we're building businesses, we're doing other qualifications to try and build our capabilities. Our output is growing for a lot of people more and more, and our sleep isn't as good as it is anymore. We do a lot more things in the evening that may be counterintuitive towards getting good sleep. So I know for me, if I get to a point where I'm starting to feel a bit stressed or I can just sense a bit of anxiety, it's usually because I need a bit of a rest or a break, and that might be different for some people. I know for me, I have like a really high output through the week, so that's probably why when I get to that point, rest now, and this is only a new thing. Previously I would have just carried on plowing forward, but yeah, for me, rest, relaxation, getting outdoors, whether it's taking Freddie down the canal somewhere, driving over to Lancashire, the Lake District or Wales, and just getting out in some green space and turning the phone off, leaving the AirPods at home.
I was going to say, try not
switching
to
off,
just
mate.
be with yourself. Yeah.
Switching off and digesting those thoughts. Maybe take a pen and paper with me and write things down. And that's been a change I've probably made in the last, I'd say 6 to 9 months. As my output has grown and grown, I now know that if I hit a wall mentally, it's probably due to the output being too high or too intense for an extended period. I'm sure there's an awful lot of people whose output is higher than mine through their work, commitments, kids, etc. So yeah, do nothing.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, I
good.
suppose, yeah.
Like that. Go on.
I think just to probably tag on to that theme, I'd say be kind to yourself in them situations. And I think specifically what I mean by that is if you've been in a situation where you've been flying, your plan A's been working, and then for whatever reason you find yourself struggling, all that hard work and all that capital that you've built up was not wasted. I used to feel like, bloody hell, that all that stuff mustn't work, or everything that I've done's been wasted, or bloody hell, why am I speaking to people about mental health when I'm struggling, or whatever. I think it's to be kind to yourself in the moments. Again, understand that this is normal. You're going to hit these points at certain times, and also these are great opportunities to reset, to maybe, you know what, I've not reflected for a while here because I was doing, my routines were working so well, but you know what, I'm not feeling too great now. It's an opportunity to reflect again and actually, how am I going to attack this now moving forward? Is there some things there that I maybe need to change? Do I need to grow again? Is there an opportunity to learn something new? Is there a conversation I need to have? So I think in them moments, be kind to yourself. Don't just think, oh, I'm back at square one. No, it does take time, and it could take a few iterations for you to actually finally be in a position where you are managing it, successfully. But some of us may never get there because, again, to my point, that chaos is always around the corner. Things can always throw us off. So I think that thing, be kind to yourself. And the one thing out there for me, which I guess I struggle with and a lot of other people struggle with, is the online social media world, because we're probably all led to believe that we need 8 hours sleep. We need to be getting up in the morning and doing affirmations, jumping into a cold water plunge, doing a high intensity workout, jumping then into a sauna, then eating a load of protein at breakfast, check our emails, go to work, come home and do a second workout of the day.
This is the Mark Wahlberg lifestyle, isn't it? You've done 8 hours work before 3 in the morning.
Yeah. We're not going to be getting Mark Wahlberg on at any point out. But I think it can become so overwhelming and all-consuming that we need to be doing all this stuff. Don't get me wrong, some of the things there I'm big on. Love cold water, love jumping in the sauna, love working out. But when I'm struggling, no, I need to retreat here a little bit and just think about the things that are really important. So my mindset, my thoughts, being kind to myself. At times, maybe just doing nothing. Exercise is important, but don't put yourself under traumatic strain. It might be important for you to exercise because I can see you two going to go in the gym with you.
Yeah.
So I think it's actually restricting some of that stuff and thinking, I don't need to do it all. I just need to do the things that are important for me just to get through this little bit of period of time. And again, that acceptance piece comes in of, I've been here before. And last time it maybe took me a month to snap out of it. This time, it's only going to take 2 weeks, or it's going to take a week, or it might just take a couple of days. It might just take a conversation. And I think that's generally what you find when you're someone who has struggled and then been able to manage it and manage it for long periods of time. When these forks in the road come, that period of, I suppose, of recovery, it reduces because you're able to establish, here's maybe what it is, or here's what I need. I'll be all right in a couple of days. Or and if I do this and this, bang on, I'll be flying again.
I think that's an important one, to have some kind of prepared, either whether it's notes, words. We've seen lads who we've supported in the community carry like a business card in the wallet with a set of questions and a set of mantras on that. When they have a difficult moment, they know that these are words in their mind that will help them pull through, or it's a set of actions that they can take. So I know for me, I have a notes page in my phone, it's just titled words, and it's just little phrases that I've heard from certain people, or one of them's a line from Batman that I always use as well, which is, I think it's Jim Gordon, says like, the night is always darkest before dawn. And if I'm having a difficult period, usually it's a bad day now rather than a week or a month, thankfully. But that one in particular reminds me, okay, yeah, it is bad, but the night is darkest, so it's going to be at its worst point just before it gets better. So just hold on in there. they will turn. There's a few other ones that I've got in there as well.
I was hoping for the Joker or Bane there, to be honest, mate, to be honest.
I think it's Jim Gordon, mate. Commissioner Gordon, yeah.
So to sort of draw it to a close, because I think there was 3 in there, I really do think there was 3 in there, and I think they're really, really good ones to think about is your plan B, rest, be kind to yourself. I think the third thing that we were saying there was keep it simple. If you're getting in that mode, you're resting, you're reflecting a little bit, you know, you're being kind to yourself, you're looking after yourself, put a simple something in place to start getting you back to where you need to be. Don't rush it, but something simple, like you said, go on the gym, maybe, you know, even just eating healthy, keep something in there.
Yeah, I think like a nice way for me to sort of like summarise that is think about yourself the way an electronic device needs an instruction manual to operate it. You need a basic instruction manual for you to just operate and generally just get through the day. What's the minimum things that you must do? And as you say, 8 hours sleep, drink plenty of water, be kind to yourself, whatever, you know, whatever it is for you, but just keep it simple. Just a handful of things on there, and like to Tom's point, to put it in your wallet, make it your wallpaper on your phone, somewhere where it's visual, where you're going to see it. And don't see it as like, I'm going backwards here, no, this is what...
I'm failing at this, yeah.
This is just the prerequisite necessary things that you need to do just to navigate this period of time. And not to say, you know, you're going to get back to where you were, 100% you will. My belief is that, but, you know, needs must in them moments, and it's just keep it simple.
Be prepared, isn't it? You know, if you live by a river, they put embankments up because they know a flood will come eventually, and you can do that to some extent with your mental health as well by being prepared. We've spoken a few times already on this episode, and we know we will again. It's a guarantee that it's going to come round. That's why the hero's journey is a circle, because it repeats and repeats and repeats. So we're going to continue to face difficulty, so the best you can prepare yourself, like all things in life, business, relationships, kids, pets, the more prepared you are for the worst case scenario, the better you'll handle it when it comes.
Fantastic. I think that's a great point to finish, lads, today, so thank you very much. Thanks everyone for listening to our 2nd episode on mental health, and you know, we're going to be back soon with more topics as we continue on. Thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.